Condenser. I'm going to remove that. First, let's get these two fittings just down here. Now, usually there's a plastic cover over here, but this car doesn't have it, so that's going to be a little bit quicker for me. It's a 10 millimeter. Just going to crack that loose. And the one down here as well. Now these just pop out. There's a O-ring fitting inside of there that keeps it sealed. Anytime you remove a fitting from your AC, replace that O-ring. You see that down there? The O-ring is right on there. This might also drip a little bit of oil, and we will replace a little bit of that oil right before we recharge the system. All right, the hood latch needs to come off, and this center brace here, I'm going to pull that off so that the condenser can come forward. Just like before, it's a 10 millimeter. All right, yep, we got it. All right, down at the bottom now. Okay, just down here, there's the bottom bolt. It's one of those. All right, now we're kind of just hanging by the cable, and that's okay. We just need enough room to get that condenser out of there. The condenser is just going to come up into the radiator support, and that's going to let the bottom move out. It's just rubber mounts down there, so they're just kind of flex out, and we can get it done here. And to answer your question, like what's wrong with this system, there we go, there's that bottom one. The compressor clutch is worn out. So I did fill this with refrigerant, and there we go. I turned on the AC, it didn't work, but if I took a bar and hit the compressor clutch, it started spinning. So the AC did work, but the clutch is worn out. So it's easier to just go ahead and buy a new compressor and a condenser. So that's what this looks like. It's pretty old. It might have some junk here in the filter. You can replace just the element, but this thing costs, I don't know, 40 bucks or something. So yeah, it was worth it. Okay, so I've got the two mounts there at the top. They look the same to me. This rubber mount at the bottom matches that one. Same size, it's got the filter in there, and the fittings look the same. So we're ready to put this thing in here. And I've already had a chance to jack the car up. That's why I was able to get this out the bottom. Otherwise it would be way too low, and we'd have problems. If your compressor stopped working internally, like it kind of blew up, you'll want to clear out all of the lines. You got to flush them out. You got to replace the condenser and the evaporator, because those cannot be flushed out. You'll get little metal bits in there, and you don't want to ruin the new compressor. So all that stuff has to be flushed out or replaced, because the new compressor will explode if you've got too much metal in there. I'm kind of working this around that bottom line. I keep hitting it. And I've still got those plugs in there because I don't want anything to get in as I'm working with it, any dirt or debris or whatever. Don't want contaminants in this system at all. All right, so that's what this looks like now. I'm going to go ahead and put the screws in for this center section, so that's not going to hit it. We're good to go. Okay, now you can just take the condenser and wiggle it around until the hole in there matches up with this one, and the bolt just goes through the hole on the condenser. It doesn't actually screw into it. It screws into the radiator support. And torque this to factory spec, of course. So I've got a speed wrench. This will fit down in between there. My ratcheting wrench won't. That wrench doesn't have to come off of the fastener. It's almost like a ratcheting wrench. It slips in the counterclockwise direction, oopsie, and it'll turn in the clockwise. So that gets my bolt started in the threads there, so I don't have to do it with my fingers, because they don't fit in there very well either. So I'm going to leave it a little bit loose. I'm not going to tighten it yet so I can put the rest of them in, but you don't need to watch that. Let's move on to the compressor. Let's go just under the alternator here. I'll try and get you a really good picture of that connector. It's a single pin connector, but it's got a weird lock on it. See this lock? I'm going to push that in. I'm going to try and come down here, a long pick, just pull that connector off. It's not easy to get my hand down there, especially not with a camera and a flashlight, but there we go. Now before we go removing bolts, I also need to remove those fittings there. This is where the lines go in. There's a 10mm bolt there. That's going to be the line on the bottom. Those are 10mm. I've got a swivel socket. This is 1/4 inch on a really long extension. I'm going to just try and go down here and pop those two fasteners off. I didn't have to pull this reservoir or the fans or anything out. If you just get the right angle on it, you should be able to get it. Okay, so here's what it looks like. We've got the bottom fitting there and the top one. Hoses are both off. Now we've got to go right there and get those mounting bolts off. There's one on the top and two on the bottom down there. Let's make our way over to the front of the engine here. You can see right down there, that's the belt tensioner, and I've got my 19mm wrench on it. Okay, I'm going to pull the wrench towards me, which will loosen the belt. And then I'm going to pull the belt off of that pulley there, the smooth one. Now I can release the tension on the wrench. Okay. Belt is off. I can pull it off of the compressor right down here. There we go. Now we can get the lines off of the compressor. I'm holding onto the back of the compressor here so it doesn't fall and hit the floor. There we go. But it's going to have to come out the bottom. Here's the bolt. I'm just going to lower this down to the floor without making a lot of noise. Hopefully. Well, made some noise. Here's that. Pretty worn out. Now this is the amount of oil that came out of the old compressor. I just captured it in this little cup. Looks to be about 1 ounce. It's pretty dirty, so I'm glad we're changing it. Probably should have put a drain pan under this instead of using these diapers, but we know now that we can put 1 ounce of new oil back in here. That's about it. That's all I want to do. Don't want to overfill these things. They do that in shipping, probably to keep everything good and lubricated and free of any corrosion. That's not what you want to do when you put it back on the car, because that oil is not compressible. You'll destroy this thing. There's too much oil in it. So now we want to mix that oil around. I'm going to turn this portion here, not the outside portion, it'll just spin, but this side will turn the pistons inside of there, if you can see that. Then I'm going to leave it here on the bench and let that oil work its way down to that seal and just lubricate it for a while. I'll leave it for about 10 minutes and then I'll flip it back over and we can put it back on the car. In order for the parts warranty to be valid on air conditioning parts, they want you to change those components. Right under here is the TXV. Now you can see that. See it covered in sort of a tan foam there? We're going to cut that foam off and replace it so that we can have our warranty. Here we go. We got the glove box out. Flashlight's in there so we can see a little bit better. Look just up there. See that foam? I scraped off as much of that foam as I needed to see those 2 Allen cap screws. And right inside there you can see is my 4mm hex key. That's all I could get to fit in there. Just for reference, this is my hand. So you can barely see, and you can put your body into some pretty unnatural positions just to get up in there. but if you work at it, you'll be able to get it. So let me crack those loose and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, let's go back to the firewall here. We've got these two connections for the evaporator. We need to loosen those up so that we can get the TXV out of there. Take a special tool. This one is from AST. I'll link it down below. It's used to unlock this little lock that goes over the connection. See that? That's just a lock that goes over it, and this tool will release those pins. There's that one. Okay, there's that line. Okay, there's that grommet. I'll slide this off. There we go. These are good and loose. Let's go back in the car and see if we can get these out. Okay, we have a victory. We'll zoom you in here. That's where the TXV was. And I've got the new one right here that we're just gonna put up in there. Wish me luck. Got a brand new, shiny, zoom you in. There we go. TXV is in there, it's bolted in. There's 4 brand new O-rings. All right, let's go back to the engine bay and hook up those lines. There it goes. These are the O-rings that came in the kit. I'll just roll them on to the hose here. And these got to be lubricated before you go in, so put a little bit of that PAG oil on your finger and just lubricate these O-rings so that they slide in and they don't get bound up. Also make sure there's no trash inside these lines here. All right, looks like a good fit. So we'll put these locks back on. It just snaps over the top of that fitting. It looks like these lines had some oil on them when I first looked at it. So this could have been the source of the leak. If you see any oily areas at joints like this, that's usually going to be an AC refrigerant leak. So make sure you replace all of your O-rings. Once they clip, they're on. Perfect. Okay, we're under the car. The hard part's over. We still got the compressor to go, but I've plugged it up so I don't get any trash inside of it. Let me go ahead and put it up where it goes and try to get those 2 bottom bolts lined up. Definitely don't want to drop the new one. Okay, let's go back up top. I just gotta fish this in to this hole here. The compressor's got 4 holes in it, but it only uses 3 on this engine. So just this top one near the front and then the 2 bottom ones. All right, we've got the lines hooked up down here on the condenser. We've got them on the compressor. Let's go ahead and put the electrical back on. Okay, remember this retainer goes onto the alternator right there, and the connector for the clutch right down here. Okay, here's the last of the mechanical stuff. You can see I've still got my 19mm on that tensioner, and the belt's routed. Just got to go right over the pulley right here. Hard to show you what I'm doing. I'm pulling on the tensioner right now, and I'm just trying to wiggle the belt over that pulley. Okay, you see it? I think that looks pretty good. Give me my wrench back. Don't want to keep that in there. The service ports are pretty easy to find on this car, the high and low right up here on top. Just pull the caps and save those. I didn't replace my Schrader valve, so I'm hoping I'm not going to get burned. But if it's leaking, it's okay. I can replace those pretty easily. All the other seals have been replaced. So I feel pretty good about it. Okay, I'm going to do two things before I charge it. First, I'm going to vacuum the whole system down, and I'm going to let it stay in a vacuum for about an hour. So 60 minutes, we're going to let it really vacuum out that system. I'm not going to do a leak test. They kind of don't work very well. So we can watch our gauges. It's pulling that low side down into vacuum. And we're just going to let it sit there. It's going to work on it, and any moisture that's in the system will boil off, and it'll be pulled out through the hoses and out into the atmosphere. We don't want any moisture in there, because water can turn to ice when it gets cold. You don't want that. So let's go ahead and wait. I'll be back in about an hour. All right, we've had it vacuumed for an hour now. We've still got vacuum in the system that's holding, which is good. We've got no leaks. Okay, what I want to do is inject a little bit of oil. I measured the oil that came out of the condenser, and it's about the same as what came out of the compressor, about an ounce. So we're going to inject oil. And I'm going to watch my bottle down here, and we'll measure about an ounce. There we go. So now that's in the system, that's in the low side. We can charge it with refrigerant. All right, so I'm just gonna push a little bit of refrigerant into the low side, and so that's gonna do that. Once it kind of stops, you can see the pressures are going now. We're gonna have to start the car, and it can pull that rest of it in there. But I just wanted to use that refrigerant to move the oil around. I don't want that compressor running with too much oil in it. All right, first start. Turn the AC on. All right, I heard it go. Already feels cold. Let's go have a look at the gauges. Looks like the car is cycling properly. Alright, we're going to take this probe and put it into the vent. Feeling cold in here. So that... Alright, ambient temperature is 67 here in the shop. And we've got 41, 42 degrees coming out of the vent. It's cycling. All right, that is super exciting. I'm gonna take a test drive with the windows up and feel that cool air. Now, if you wanna see how I recovered that refrigerant the last time, that was with the engine out video. You can click that right over there.